The sun rose over Naval Station Norfolk like a spotlight, hard and merciless, exposing every tension line carved into the steel-gray flight deck. The wind was sharp enough to sting, whipping at flags, jackets, and nerves. And marching straight through the center of it all was Officer Elena Ward, her posture perfect, her stride even, her expression unreadable. To an outsider, she looked like any other hardened Navy officer accustomed to pressure, commands, and chaos. But anyone who paid attention, really paid attention, could see the stress vibrating beneath her skin. Her shoulders were too tight. Her breaths were too controlled. And exhaustion clung to her movements like invisible weights, the kind that came from nights spent staring at ceilings, not sleeping in beds. She hadn't slept properly in 3 days. Maybe 4. Time had blurred. But none of that mattered. What mattered was now. As she crossed the deck, conversations dipped into hushed murmurs, then cut off entirely. Sailors who had been joking moments before now stiffened, lowering their voices or pretending to look busy. Their eyes followed her as if she were a storm cloud rolling in from the horizon. "That's her," someone whispered behind a crate of gear. "From the Gulf Op, you know that mission. Did you see the reports? Half of it was redacted. Why is the Admiral back so early, and why?" "Shut up before she hears you." The words stabbed into the air like needles, but Elena didn't flinch. Gossip was nothing. Rumors were nothing. Compared to the truth she carried, they were feathers against steel. Ahead of her stood a figure who belonged on recruitment posters, tall, composed, and impossibly authoritative. Admiral Reeve Dalton didn't simply command respect. He generated it like a force field. Officers straightened when he walked past. New recruits whispered his name like a legend. He was the kind of man the Navy carved statues of. But as Elena approached, the Admiral wasn't stone. Not today. Today there was tension in the air around him, as if he felt the gravity of what was coming before she said a single word. "Officer Ward," he said as she reached him, voice low and rough like gravel dragged across steel. "Sir," she replied, stopping at attention. "Walk with me." They began across the deck, their steps swallowed by the roar of the ocean and the metallic clank of distant machinery. Overhead, a pair of jets shot into the sky with teeth-rattling force, but neither of them looked up. The world went on, oblivious. Elena's pulse hammered in her ears. Every step brought her closer to a moment she wasn't sure she was ready for. Every gust of wind felt colder than the last. Finally, the Admiral halted near the far edge of the deck, by the overlook where the horizon stretched endless and blue. His eyes settled on her with heavy expectation. "You requested this meeting." "Urgent," she acknowledged. "And you insisted it be confidential, level black confidential." Elena swallowed. This was the point of no return. "Yes, sir." The Admiral studied her, measuring tension, fear, truth. "Then start talking." But she didn't. Because words weren't enough. Her hands twitched. She hadn't planned on showing him like this, out in the open air, where the wind bit and the sun exposed every detail. But fate wasn't something she bargained with anymore. She reached down. The Admiral's brow furrowed. "Elena." Her fingers tightened around the hem of her navy shirt. For a heartbeat, she hesitated. But then, she lifted it. The fabric rose. The ocean wind hit her skin. And the Admiral froze. His breath caught mid-inhale. Because the scars weren't random. They weren't messy or chaotic like shrapnel wounds. They ran in brutal, deliberate stripes across her ribs, symmetrical, carved with purpose, like someone had taken their time, like someone wanted them to be recognized. The Admiral stepped back, horror slowly overtaking discipline. "Ward, my God," his voice cracked just barely but enough to make the world shift. "What happened to you?" Her voice when it came wasn't shaky, it was ice. "Sir, I didn't get these in the Gulf." The Admiral blinked, confusion sliding into dread. Then where? Elena let the shirt fall back into place. The fabric snapped in the wind. She lifted her eyes to his, and in that moment, every rumor, every whisper, every piece of classified speculation faded compared to what she was about to say. From the man you thought died 12 years ago. Silence swallowed everything, even the sea. The Admiral's expression shattered in an instant. Color drained from his face. His jaw slackened, then clenched again so tightly the muscle twitched violently. "Elena," he whispered, voice hoarse, "that's impossible." She didn't blink. Didn't breathe. "He's alive." The Admiral's hand gripped the railing beside him, knuckles turning bone white. His gaze shifted, unfocused, as if he were suddenly staring through time. 12 years ago was a chapter the Navy never reopened. Because it was too dangerous, too haunting, too classified. Before he could speak, a blaring alarm ripped across the deck. The PA system crackled to life, jarring and urgent. "Admiral Dalton, report to command immediately, priority black alert." Every sailor on deck snapped to motion, sprinting toward stations, their voices rising in confusion. A storm of activity erupted around them, but the Admiral didn't move. Not yet. He turned to Elena, fear, confusion, and something darker twisting behind his eyes. "Ward, what did you just set in motion?" Elena didn't answer. She couldn't. She only managed a whisper carried away by the wind. "It's already begun." The Admiral grabbed her arm, not roughly, but with the urgency of a man whose world had just been ripped open, and pulled her toward the interior hatch. As alarms wailed and sailors scattered like sparks from a flame, Elena felt a chilling certainty settle in her bones. This was the last moment of calm either of them would have. For a very, very long time, the interior of the Admiral's office smelled of polished wood, old leather, and faint traces of sea salt carried in from the deck. Elena stepped inside, her boots echoing against the pristine floor. Behind her, the door slammed shut with a finality that made her chest tighten. There would be no turning back now. Admiral Dalton moved to the side of his massive oak desk, gesturing for her to sit, though neither of them would. Standing, they were equals in the storm of information that was about to come crashing down. "Start from the beginning," the Admiral commanded, though his voice betrayed the turmoil in his chest. "Who did this to you?" Elena inhaled sharply, summoning the words that had haunted her for years. "It wasn't just one person," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor she felt inside. "It was a network, a program. They've been watching me since before I even knew what danger was." Dalton's eyes narrowed. "A program, explain." She swallowed. "I was recruited after the Gulf disaster, not by the Navy, not officially. A covert initiative, Black Ops. I was trained, deployed, and then they tried to erase me." The Admiral ran a hand through his hair, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked like it might crack. "Erase you?" "They wanted to make me disappear, sir. Physically, mentally, erase the record of who I am and what I know. And when I resisted," her voice faltered for the first time, "they left me these." She lifted her shirt again, just enough to reveal the jagged scars across her ribs. Dalton's hand hovered over his mouth. His eyes, usually so controlled and calculating, flickered with shock, disbelief, and fury. "Elena, you don't have to believe me. I just need you to understand that he's alive." The words hung in the air like smoke. Dalton's mind raced back to the man he thought was dead, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Vey, one of the Navy's finest who vanished during a covert mission in the Middle East 12 years ago. The man's name had been whispered in classified reports, hushed conversations, and a few conspiratorial theories, but no one had proof, not even Dalton. And yet here she was. Dalton's voice was barely audible. 12 years, I saw the reports, I saw the files, I thought it was over. I thought he was gone for good." "He wasn't," Alina said, stepping closer. Her eyes locked with his, piercing. He's been orchestrating this from the shadows. Every covert op, every classified mission, every failure you never understood, it was him. And now he's back. Dalton leaned back against the desk, his hands gripping the edge. His breathing was heavy. Back where? Back doing what? He's building an army, Admiral, Alina said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Not just soldiers, agents, operatives, people trained to follow him blindly. And he's planning something massive, something that will strike the Navy and the country where it hurts most. Dalton's eyes narrowed, mind already spinning through scenarios, threat assessments, and countermeasures. "Do you have proof?" he demanded. Alina reached into the inner pocket of her jacket and pulled out a small, metallic device. It was no bigger than a flash drive but hummed with a quiet intensity. "Everything I've gathered. Locations, operatives, plans, it's all here. But I can't do this alone." Dalton took the device with trembling fingers, staring at it like it held the answers to every nightmare he had ever had. This is enough to start an investigation. Enough to. A sudden pounding at the door interrupted him. Both Dalton and Alina turned sharply. "Admiral, command needs you. Urgent," a voice shouted from the other side. Dalton cursed under his breath. "They don't know yet that I have her here. They don't know what she knows." Alina's hand went to her side instinctively. "Sir, we need to move now. If he knows I'm here, if he's aware I survived." Dalton's eyes darkened. He would know. Marcus Vey doesn't leave loose ends. Not ever. That's what makes him him. The Admiral grabbed his jacket, motioning for Alina to follow. They moved quickly through the corridors, the echo of their boots blending with the clamor of sailors responding to alarms. Screens flashed red with warnings and orders, and a tense urgency radiated through every room. Dalton led her to a secure elevator. "We're heading to command. You'll brief the Joint Operations Center there, but understand if what you say is true and he's alive, it changes everything. The Navy, the military, the entire intelligence apparatus, everything we thought we knew." Alina nodded, her own pulse quickening. "I know, that's why I came to you first. You're the only one I trust." The elevator descended with a low hum. Dalton leaned against the wall, staring at her with an intensity that made her stomach tighten. "Alina, do you know what it means to go up against him? To confront Marcus Vey? He's not just a man. He's a ghost, a weapon, a strategist who thinks in decades. He's unstoppable if we're not careful." "I've faced worse, sir," she said, though the lie was thin. She hadn't faced anything like him, not yet, but she had survived worse, and that gave her a dangerous kind of confidence. "I'm ready." Dalton's hand clenched into a fist. "Ready? Alina, this isn't about courage, it's about survival, and not just yours." The elevator doors opened, revealing the bustling Joint Operations Center. Screens glowed with maps, troop movements, satellite feeds, and classified intel. Officers and analysts moved with urgency, monitoring every flash of activity around the globe. Dalton guided Alina to a private briefing room at the back. Inside, the room was dim, illuminated by a single large screen. Dalton gestured for her to take the lead. "Show me what you've got," he said. Alina connected the device to the screen. Immediately, a series of images, documents, and schematics filled the display. Satellite photos of remote compounds, coded communications, and encrypted schedules scrolled past. Each slide told a story of preparation, patience, and meticulous planning. Dalton leaned closer, eyes scanning rapidly. His face went pale with every new revelation. He's everywhere." "Yes," Alina said, "and he's been waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, and now it's almost here." Dalton pressed a button, enlarging one of the satellite images. A remote training facility, heavily guarded, isolated in a mountain range. This is where he's building his team. How many operatives?" Alina's finger hovered over the screen. "Hundreds, maybe thousands, specially trained, loyal, and every one of them believes in him completely. Dalton's eyes hardened. We need to act now, but we need a plan. If we move too early, we risk losing her. His eyes darted to Alina. Or worse. A low, tense silence filled the room. Then, a single alert blared from the security feed, an intruder detected near the main gate of the facility. Dalton and Alina exchanged a look. "He knows we're onto him," she whispered. "And he's making the first move," Dalton said, voice heavy with dread. The screen flickered, showing movement, a shadow slipping along the perimeter fence. It was fast, calculated, like a predator testing its prey. Alina's heart pounded. This was no longer theory, no longer speculation. Marcus Vey had returned and the game had already begun. Dalton turned to her, voice low but fierce. "Ward, we don't have time. Gather everything you've got, we move tonight. And remember," he paused, the weight of command settling over him, "if he's alive, he will stop at nothing to finish what he started." Alina swallowed hard, feeling the enormity of what they faced, but she couldn't back down. Not now, not ever. As the screen showed the intruder slipping closer to the compound's heart, she whispered to herself almost inaudibly, "I won't let him win. Not this time." And just as the first sirens of incoming aircraft sounded across the feed, the lights flickered. The screen went black. Dalton's jaw tightened. He's already here. Alina's stomach sank. And in that instant, the line between hunter and hunted blurred completely. The Joint Operations Center was a hive of controlled chaos, the kind that could make even seasoned officers sweat. Screens flickered with maps, live feeds, and real-time telemetry. Analysts typed rapidly, shouting coordinates and decrypts, while Dalton and Alina stood over a central console, their eyes locked on the largest display. The feed from the intruder at the mountain compound was still live. A shadow moved across the perimeter, fluid, silent, and precise. It wasn't a rookie. It wasn't a random scout. It was a professional, and Alina's stomach twisted. She recognized the gate instantly. The way the shadow shifted weight, the subtle timing of each step. "Sir," Alina said, voice taut, "that's him." Dalton's eyes went wide. "Vey." She nodded. "There's no doubt, and he's scouting, testing defenses." Dalton ran a hand over his face. He could have hundreds inside already, waiting. "Yes," she said grimly, "and he knows we're onto him. That means tonight it starts." The analysts continued to feed information. The facility was isolated, mountainous, difficult to access, and monitored constantly by both satellites and drones. But Vey had bypassed their sensors before they even realized he was there. That wasn't luck. It was meticulous planning, years of preparation, and unmatched skill. Alina's hand moved to her side again, touching the faint scars along her ribs, a painful reminder of everything she had endured. Those marks were not just memories, they were warnings. They were survival etched in flesh. And she knew that Vey's return meant nothing less than a war on every front she had ever known. Dalton's voice cut through the tension. "We need boots on the ground, and we need them now. Can you handle extraction?" "I can," Alina said, her jaw tight. "But we need precision, no mistakes. He's already testing us." The Admiral gave a curt nod. "Then lead. You know him better than anyone." Within an hour, a task force was assembled. Elite operatives, drone specialists, intelligence analysts. Every available resource was thrown into planning a covert infiltration. Dalton and Alina studied the maps meticulously, marking entry points, predicting patrol patterns, and timing every possible scenario. "Nightfall gives us the advantage," Alina said. "We move under the radar, avoid drone detection, and approach from the northern ridge. It's steep, treacherous, but it's our only chance." Dalton's eyes flicked toward her. "And if he anticipates us?" She swallowed. "Then we improvise. That's the only thing he won't predict. He knows my methods, but not my choices." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows across the operations center. Outside, the world darkened, but inside the tension was almost tangible. Every moment was stretched tight like a wire, ready to snap. By 2100 hours, the infiltration team was in position. Helicopters hovered silently over the ridge, dropping operatives with precision that made Alina's heart pound. She moved with them, her body coiled like a spring, every muscle ready. Her scars itched under her uniform, an invisible memory that reminded her what was at stake. The northern ridge was colder than expected. Wind cut across their faces, making communication difficult. Hand signals were exchanged, gear checked, weapons loaded. Alina led the group, her mind rehearsing every possible encounter with Vey. Then the unexpected. Movement below, flashlights, patrols, too many to count. Vey had anticipated their route, or at least part of it. Alina froze, pressing a hand against the shoulder of a teammate. Hold. They crouched low, shadows among shadows, hearts hammering. Alina's pulse was a drumbeat of dread and determination. One wrong move and the entire operation would collapse. "Sir," one of the younger operatives whispered into a comms device. "There's a perimeter breach, multiple hostiles approaching." Dalton's voice crackled in response. "Engage only if necessary. Priority, locate Vey. Capture alive if possible. Repeat, alive if possible." Alina nodded. "Copy, sir." The team advanced cautiously, moving along the ridge, using the darkness as cover. The compound's outer defenses were sophisticated. Sensors, cameras, and traps laid to catch intruders. But Alina knew the weaknesses. She had studied every image, every file, every shred of intelligence she could gather. This was her edge. As they neared the perimeter, a shadow detached itself from the darkness. Vey. He moved silently, effortlessly, a predator in his element. Alina's stomach dropped. Every story she had ever heard about him, the tactical brilliance, the ruthlessness, the ability to anticipate movements, was true. And now here he was, testing them personally. He paused, almost casually, as if sensing her presence. And for a brief, terrifying moment, their eyes met across the ridge. Alina felt a jolt. Memories she had tried to bury surged up. The last mission, the betrayal, the scars, the near death. He hadn't changed. Not in the way that mattered. Not in the way that would make him vulnerable. Then he moved again, vanishing into the shadows, leaving only the whisper of his presence. Alina exhaled slowly, barely moving. "He knows we're here," she whispered to her team. "Then what do we do?" one operative asked, voice tight. "We follow," she said firmly. "We track him, and we make him make the first mistake." Minutes felt like hours as they moved closer. Each step, each calculated movement brought them deeper into the compound, where danger lurked behind every corner. Sensors blinked. Guards patrolled. Dogs barked in the distance. But Alina pressed forward, guided by memory and instinct. And then the first trap. A small explosion detonated near the eastern perimeter. Smoke and fire erupted, cutting visibility. The team scattered instinctively, adrenaline surging. Alina hit the ground, rolling to avoid shrapnel. Her ear rang. Her lungs burned. When the smoke cleared, she realized with a sinking heart, Vey had been testing them. He had known exactly where to place it. And he was watching, somewhere in the darkness, anticipating their next move. Dalton's voice came over comms, tight with tension. "Ward status." Alina's fingers tightened around her weapon. "We're compromised, but we're still moving. He's baiting us." "Understood," Dalton replied. "Do not engage unless necessary." Her team regrouped, shaken but determined. They pressed forward, moving past the charred remains of the trap. Every shadow felt alive. Every movement felt like it belonged to Vey. Finally, they reached the inner perimeter. The central compound loomed before them, dark and foreboding. Lights flickered inside. Figures moved with silent precision. And somewhere within, Marcus Vey waited, orchestrating his own lethal game. Alina's heart pounded. She could feel the weight of the past 12 years pressing down on her. Every scar, every memory, every failure she had survived, it all led to this moment. She looked to her team. Stay sharp, he's here, and he knows everything about us. A shadow moved across the roof. And then a voice, calm, cold, unmistakable. Elena. Her blood froze. The compound's inner courtyard was a maze of shadows and angular walls. Elena's team moved like ghosts themselves, feet silent on gravel and steel, eyes scanning every corner, every possible hiding place. The night air was sharp, filled with the scent of burning traps and tension. Somewhere above, the wind whispered through the eaves of the buildings, carrying the faintest hint of betrayal. Then a voice cut through the darkness, low, deliberate, and icy. Elena. Her blood ran cold. The sound was unmistakable. Marcus Vey. 12 years had passed, but his voice was unchanged. Still calm, still deliberate, still lethal. Elena froze for a heartbeat, scanning the shadows. Every training drill, every mission briefing, every memory of him surged through her mind. She had imagined this moment countless times, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of standing in the same space as the man who had left scars both visible and hidden in her life. "Show yourself," she called, her voice steady despite the storm of adrenaline inside her. From the shadows he stepped forward, silhouette sharp against dim lights, movement controlled, predator-like. His face was calm, almost serene, but the intensity in his eyes could strip a person bare. Marcus Vey had always been a master of control, and now, after 12 years, he radiated it with terrifying precision. "Elena," he said again, slowly circling her like a hawk sizing up prey. "I knew you'd come. I knew you couldn't resist the call. I wondered, how long before you stepped back into my world?" Her team spread out, forming a protective perimeter, but Elena motioned for them to hold. This was her confrontation, her reckoning. "I came to stop you," she said, forcing herself to meet his gaze. Vey's smile was faint, almost sadistic. "Stop me? You can barely stop yourself, Elena. Do you remember that night?" She flinched but didn't lower her weapon. Every scar along her ribs burned with memory, the nights of torture, the betrayals, the moments she thought she would die and never see another sunrise. "I survived," she said, "and I'm here to end this." "End this?" His laugh was quiet, but it cut sharper than any blade. "Do you understand what you're up against? Everything you know, every mission, every strategy, every man or woman who has trusted you, it all plays into this. And yet, you think you can stop me." Elena's grip tightened on her rifle, her pulse surged. "I don't think I know. I survived your games once. I'll survive them again, and this time I'm not alone." Vey tilted his head, studying her like one studies an insect, delicate but dangerous. "You've changed," he said. "The scars, the fire in your eyes, it suits you. But do you know why I left you? Why I vanished?" "I don't care," she said through clenched teeth. "All that matters is stopping you now." He chuckled softly, stepping closer. "You never understood, Elena. I left because I wanted to see if you could rise above the weakness, the hesitation, the chains that bound you. I left to test the fire inside you. And look at you, 12 years later, still burning, still alive. But do you have the strength to finish what you started?" The courtyard seemed to shrink around them, shadows lengthening, the night air thickening. Elena's team held positions, but all attention had shifted inward, eyes locked on the two figures who had history written in scars and memories. Elena forced herself to focus, blocking the haunting echo of 12 years past. "I'm not here for tests," she said. "I'm here to stop you." Vey's eyes darkened. "And if I refuse to be stopped? If I decide the world isn't ready for what I can unleash?" Then, without warning, a series of explosions rippled across the outer walls. Smoke and fire erupted, sending debris flying. Elena's team scrambled, taking cover, weapons ready. But Vey didn't flinch. He moved as if part of the chaos, shadows folding into him, untouchable, predatory. Elena lunged forward, weapon raised, but he was gone in an instant. Only the faint echo of his movement remained. A comms alert crackled. Multiple intrusions detected at the northern perimeter. Reinforcements needed immediately. Dalton's voice came over her earpiece, tight and urgent. "Ward status." "Engaged," she replied. "Vay's here, he's in the courtyard. I need eyes on him now." The screen in the courtyard flickered. Drone feeds, thermal imaging, and surveillance cameras captured fleeting glimpses of movement. Vay was everywhere and nowhere, striking fear into every operator, his presence a psychological weapon as much as a physical one. Alina realized that stopping him would require more than skill. It would require understanding him, predicting his moves, seeing through his mind, and exploiting the tiniest weakness. And the one advantage she had, the scars along her ribs, the memory of pain and survival, the intimate knowledge of his methods. "He's testing us," Alina whispered to herself, trying to see who falters first. Then another figure emerged from the shadows behind Vay. A young operative, clearly coerced or perhaps brainwashed, moving with deadly precision. Alina recognized the training style immediately. It mirrored her own in some ways, but twisted, corrupted. She aimed, prepared to neutralize the threat, but Dalton's voice interrupted. "Hold, we cannot kill them. Extraction first. Capture alive." Alina hesitated, heart hammering, but she obeyed, forcing herself to hold fire. The operative moved closer, and Vay's eyes flicked to the same figure, a shadow of pride crossing his face. "You see," Vay said, almost taunting, "they follow me willingly, they believe in my vision, and you're trying to stop the inevitable." Alina's pulse spiked. "I'll stop you," she growled, stepping forward, every muscle coiled, ready. The wind carried his voice again, calm, cold, commanding. "Alina, 12 years. You're strong, yes, but strength alone isn't enough. Are you willing to pay the price?" She froze, recognizing the threat behind the question. Every scar, every memory, every moment she had survived flashed before her. He was daring her, testing her resolve. "Yes," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I'll pay it, and I'll finish this." For the first time, Vay paused. Not a full retreat, not a strike, but a pause. The predator was calculating, measuring, analyzing. He stepped back into the shadows, melting into the darkness, leaving only a whisper behind. "This isn't over, it's only just begun." The courtyard fell silent. Smoke swirled, flames licked the walls, and Alina's team regrouped, shaken but alive. Every eye in the courtyard searched for him, but he was gone. Alina's chest heaved. She touched the scars along her ribs, a reminder of what had been endured, what had been survived. "He's planning something," she whispered to Dalton over comms, "and it's bigger than we imagined." Dalton's reply was grim. "We've just crossed the first line, Ward. Hold your ground, stay sharp, and remember he knows us now." Alina nodded, gripping her weapon tightly, feeling the weight of the night pressing down. Somewhere out there in the darkness, Marcus Vay was watching, waiting, orchestrating the next move. And she knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was no longer a battle for intelligence, for territory, or for mission success. It was a battle for survival, for revenge, for the future itself. The shadows shifted again, and for a fleeting moment she thought she saw him, standing atop the compound's roof, motionless, observing. Then he vanished. Alina clenched her jaw. "He's everywhere," she whispered. Dalton's voice crackled in her ear. "Prepare for extraction, but Ward, remember, this isn't just a fight, it's a chess game, and right now he's 3 moves ahead." Alina swallowed, heart pounding, and whispered to herself, "I'm not losing this game, not tonight, not ever." And as the night closed in around the compound, the true scope of Marcus Vay's return began to reveal itself. Night deepened over the compound like a living entity, swallowing every whisper of movement. Alina's team had regrouped after the first confrontation, shaken but resolute. Every shadow, every flicker of light, felt like a potential threat. Marcus Vey had proven he was more than a man. He was a ghost, a master manipulator who knew their every move before they even thought it. Alina crouched behind a low wall, scanning the perimeter through night vision goggles. Her hand instinctively brushed the scars along her ribs. Every pain, every memory from 12 years ago surged back. He had left her broken once. She refused to let him do it again. "Sir," whispered a young operative next to her, "we're not detecting any movement, but the feed is inconsistent. There could be multiple infiltrators inside." Dalton's voice crackled in her earpiece, calm but tense. "Ward, keep your team tight. He's testing you. Expect the unexpected." Alina nodded, scanning the dark courtyard. Something was off. Too quiet, too controlled. He wasn't just hiding, he was orchestrating. And she knew exactly what that meant, a trap. A sudden flicker of light caught her eye. A drone, or perhaps a reflection. She motioned for her team to hold. Every second counted. Then came the sound, a single metallic click, almost imperceptible, followed by another. The air seemed to vibrate with tension. Alina's stomach sank. She had trained for ambushes, but not like this. Not with someone who knew her, her team, and her tactics. "Ambush," she hissed. Explosions ripped through the courtyard as gunfire erupted from hidden positions. The team scattered instinctively, taking cover behind walls and crates. Smoke filled the air, burning eyes and choking lungs. Alina's heart hammered as she peered through the haze, trying to locate the enemy. Vey moved like a shadow among shadows, unseen, untouchable. His voice rang out, calm and taunting. "You should have stayed away, Alina. You should have let the past lie." Alina gritted her teeth. "You think I'm afraid of you?" "You should be," he replied, voice like ice. Another explosion rocked the compound. A teammate fell beside her, blood staining the gravel. Alina's stomach dropped. She grabbed him, trying to pull him to cover. "Stay with me," she shouted. Dalton's voice came over the comms. "Ward status." "Casualties," she spat, voice tight. "He's targeting us systematically. We need extraction now." "Not yet," Dalton said. "We can't leave him free. We need intel. Keep moving forward." Alina's jaw clenched. Forward meant deeper into the trap, but she had no choice. She signaled her team, moving carefully through the smoke, checking every corner, every shadow. Then she saw him, Vey, standing in the shadows, flanked by two operatives, one of whom had once trained under her. Betrayal surged through her chest like fire. He had turned her own knowledge against her. "Stay back," she shouted. "You don't have to do this." The operative moved closer, weapon raised. Alina hesitated, heart breaking. This was someone she had mentored, trusted, and now they followed him blindly. Vey's voice cut through the tension. "They chose me, Alina, just as you once would have. The only difference is I succeeded where you were constrained by loyalty." Alina fired. The operative went down, eyes wide in shock. Another teammate fired from cover, taking out the second. Vey vanished into the smoke before she could target him. Her chest heaved. Blood, fear, and fury coursed through her veins. Every scar along her ribs throbbed, a painful reminder of his past reach. He had anticipated every move, exploited every weakness. "Ward," Dalton's voice broke through. "He's herding you into the inner compound. We need containment now." Alina nodded, forcing herself to focus. "Copy. Moving to the inner courtyard, watch the flanks." As they advanced, the ground trembled slightly under another explosion. A wall collapsed ahead, separating half the team. Panic flared, but Alina's focus sharpened. "Stay alive," she muttered to herself. "Just survive." Inside the courtyard, they found more than they expected. The central building had been rigged with tripwires, pressure sensors, and hidden explosives. Vey's strategy was clear: slow, divide, and conquer. She called for a halt. "We need a plan, we can't rush in." Dalton's voice was grim. "Ward, Vey is playing with you. He wants to break you." Alina's mind raced. The traps, the ambushes, the betrayal. It all pointed to one conclusion. He knew she would follow, and he had prepared to make her pay in ways beyond physical pain. A sudden scream tore through the courtyard. One of her teammates had triggered a hidden charge, thrown into the air before landing with a sickening thud. Elena raced over, pulling him to cover. Blood ran down his side. "Stay with me," she shouted, voice cracking with fear and anger. He gasped, eyes wide. He's everywhere, can't. Vei's laughter echoed through the courtyard, haunting and merciless. Elena felt rage ignite. "I'll find you," she hissed. "I'll stop you." Dalton's voice returned, heavy with authority. "Ward, regroup. Focus on survival and intel. We can't take him head-on yet. You're walking into his hands." Elena's hand went to her side again, feeling the old scars tighten. Pain and memory fused with resolve. Vei had taken so much, tried to erase her life, but he hadn't succeeded. Not fully. Not yet. Her gaze swept the courtyard. She counted the surviving team members, motioned for them to fall back. They needed to survive the night, escape, and rethink the assault. But just as they moved, a shadow detached itself from the rubble. Vei. Closer this time, smiling, calm, predatory. "Elena," he said softly, "do you see now? You can't stop me. Not tonight, not ever." Her rifle was raised, her finger on the trigger, her team behind her. The wind carried the tension like a blade. "I can," she whispered, voice like steel. "I will." He tilted his head, studying her. "We'll see, but first." Another explosion. The ground beneath them erupted. Smoke, fire, chaos. A teammate was thrown to the side, screaming. Elena caught him, dragging him behind cover. Her chest heaved. Her ribs burned, every scar a reminder of the last time he had one. And in that moment, Elena realized the magnitude of what she faced. Vei wasn't just a man. He was a storm, relentless, precise, and almost untouchable. But she would not falter. Not now. Not ever. Because she had survived worse. She had endured scars deeper than these. And tonight, she would fight not just for survival, but for vengeance. The courtyard was a war zone. Flames licked the walls. Shadows twisted like living things. And somewhere within, Marcus Vei watched, orchestrating, waiting for the final move that would either break her or test her beyond anything she had ever known. Elena's eyes narrowed. Every breath, every heartbeat, every scar along her ribs fueled her determination. And as the night closed in, one truth became crystal clear. This was far from over. The night air was thick with smoke and the acrid tang of explosives. The inner courtyard of the compound was strewn with debris, charred metal, and the bodies of those who had fallen in the first wave of Vei's ambush. Elena crouched behind a collapsed wall, scanning the chaos through the green glow of her night vision goggles. Her team was battered but alive, moving with cautious precision. Every sound, every movement could be Vei, or worse, one of his loyal operatives masquerading as a survivor. Dalton's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Ward, status report. Are you holding position?" Elena swallowed hard, wiping sweat from her brow. "We're holding, sir, but he's controlling everything. This isn't a fight, it's a chess game, and right now we're 3 moves behind." "Then it's time to change the board," Dalton said grimly. "You know his patterns better than anyone. Take the initiative." Elena's fingers brushed the scars along her ribs. Pain radiated through her body, but the familiar burn reminded her of one unshakable truth. She had survived worse. 12 years ago, she had been broken. Tonight, she was unbreakable. "All right," she muttered, voice tight with resolve. "We're going to force him to reveal himself. Everyone follow my lead. We move to the central building. Watch every angle, stay tight, move fast." Her team advanced through the rubble, each step deliberate. Explosions and sporadic gunfire echoed through the compound as they approached the central building. Elena's heart hammered. She knew Vei was watching, analyzing, anticipating. But she had a plan, a counterstrike he wouldn't see coming. Inside the building, shadows twisted and danced as they swept the corridors. Vey had left traps and Alina's team moved carefully, checking every doorway, every corner. The scars on her ribs itched with every heartbeat, memories of previous ambushes flashing in her mind. She would not fail, not now. Then a flicker of movement. Vey emerged from the shadows, flanked by two operatives. His calm, predatory presence made Alina's blood run cold. He stopped a few meters away, arms crossed, watching her. "Ward," he said, voice cold as ice. "You never learn. You step into my world thinking you can survive it. 12 years and yet here you are, as predictable as ever." "I'm not here to survive," Alina said, weapon raised, muscles coiled like springs. "I'm here to end this." He tilted his head, studying her. "End this? You still don't understand. This game has been in motion for years. Every move you've made, every mission you've completed has brought you to me. And yet you think this confrontation changes anything." Alina felt rage ignite within her. "It does. Tonight it changes everything." She signaled to her team, splitting their formation to flank him. The operatives responded, moving with precision, weapons ready. Vey's eyes flicked to them, calculating. Then chaos erupted. Alina fired the first shot, forcing one operative to dive behind cover. Her team moved with coordinated precision, striking from unexpected angles. Vey dodged with almost supernatural agility, weaving between bullets, anticipating their every move. But Alina had a hidden advantage: knowledge. 12 years of studying his tactics, understanding his psychology, anticipating his instincts. She maneuvered through the shadows, forcing him toward a trap of her own design, a narrow corridor rigged with flashbangs and trip wires. Vey paused, sensing the danger. His expression remained calm, almost amused. "Clever," he murmured, "but not enough." Then Alina triggered the trap. Flashbangs erupted, disorienting him and the operatives. Smoke and light filled the corridor. Her team surged forward, weapons raised. For a moment, the predator was caught off guard. Alina lunged, tackling one operative while another team member subdued the second. Vey slipped through her fingers like smoke, vanishing into the shadows once more. Panting, Alina pressed forward, adrenaline fueling every movement. She knew the final confrontation was near. Somewhere in the compound, Vey awaited, orchestrating the chaos like a conductor of destruction. Then came the whisper, barely audible over the comms. "Alina, 12 years and you still carry the weight of the past. Do you know why I left you?" Her pulse spiked. Memories she had tried to bury resurfaced: torture, betrayal, survival. Her scars burned with every heartbeat. She shook off the pain, focusing on the task ahead. "I don't care," she said through clenched teeth. "You're finished." A door to the inner sanctum swung open, revealing a room filled with monitors, maps, and encrypted devices. Vey stood in the center, motionless, waiting. "Alina," he said, calm and deliberate, "I want to show you something you weren't ready to see." Her eyes scanned the room and then she saw it. Photos, files, and digital manifests. Names she recognized, including operatives she had trained herself. But among them was something else, something that made her stomach twist. A folder labeled in bold letters: Project Ward, Extraction and Elimination. Her breath caught. Vey had known all along. He hadn't just orchestrated the past. He had orchestrated her survival, manipulated her entire career, and turned every mission, every choice, every trust into part of his plan. "You see," he said, stepping closer, "I shaped everything, and now the final phase begins. Will you stop me, or will you succumb to the truth?" Alina's hand shook as she raised her weapon. Her eyes flicked to the folder, then back to him. Rage, fear, and determination collided inside her. "This ends tonight," she said, voice steel. "I'm taking you down." Vey's smile was faint, almost sadistic. "I expected nothing less." Then the unthinkable happened. From a hidden compartment in the ceiling, a sniper shot rang out. One of Alina's team fell, lifeless. Blood sprayed across the concrete, screams echoing in the room. Alina's heart sank. She had underestimated him. Vey had anticipated every move, even the counterstrike. Dalton's voice came over comms, tense. "Ward, pull back, extraction now." But Alina couldn't move. Not yet, not until she had faced him. Vey's eyes gleamed with cold satisfaction. "You've survived the past, Alina, but the future is mine." She gritted her teeth, hand tightening on her rifle. The scars along her ribs burned with the memory of survival, pain, and defiance. She would not let him win. Not tonight. And in that moment, the stakes became clear. The mission was no longer about strategy or intelligence. It was about survival, vengeance, and confronting the man who had haunted her for 12 years. The shadows of the inner sanctum closed in. The air crackled with tension, every second stretched tight. Alina's heart raced. Somewhere in the darkness, Vey waited for the next move. And she was ready. Smoke and flickering lights consumed the inner sanctum, wrapping every corner in shadows. Alina's breaths were sharp, echoing in her ears, matching the rhythm of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her team was reduced, battered, and terrified, but the fire in her eyes refused to dim. 12 years of pain, betrayal, and survival had led to this moment. Face to face with Marcus Vey, the ghost who had haunted her every mission. Vey stood at the far end of the room, calm and poised, as if the chaos surrounding him were nothing more than a gentle breeze. His eyes scanned Alina, unyielding and calculating. "Impressive," he said softly. "You've survived every obstacle I've set, every trap, every ambush, but now it ends." Alina's voice was steel. "Not tonight, not you, not ever." The scars along her ribs ached with memory, but they also fueled her. They were proof that she had endured, that she had risen from the ashes he had tried to bury her in. Tonight, she would prove she was no longer the pawn in his game. Her team flanked her, weapons raised, but Vey's calm demeanor unnerved them. His presence was magnetic, terrifying, precise. Alina's pulse surged, not from fear, but from determination. "Why, Marcus?" she demanded. "Why orchestrate all of this, all the deaths, the betrayals, the pain?" Vey tilted his head, almost curious. "Because, Alina, you needed to see the truth, to understand the world as I do. Strength isn't given, it's forged in fire, in chaos, in survival, and only those who endure the unbearable can shape the future." Her hands shook, not from fear, but from fury. "You've destroyed lives. You've hurt everyone who trusted you. All for what? Some twisted idea of strength." "Not an idea," he said, stepping closer, every movement deliberate. "Reality." Alina's team tightened their formation, but Vey's eyes flicked past them, scanning, predicting, reading like a strategist who had thought 3 moves ahead before the game even began. Suddenly, a hidden panel on the wall exploded. Debris rained down. Alina instinctively dove to cover, firing blindly at the shadow that emerged. Her bullets struck nothing. Vey had vanished again. "Stop," she yelled, rising to her feet. "Show yourself." The room remained silent, tension coiling around her like a live wire. Then a faint reflection caught her eye, movement along the upper catwalk. Vey. He dropped down behind her team, fast as a shadow, taking down 2 operatives with precise, silent strikes. Alina's heart pounded. This wasn't just combat, this was a psychological war. Every move she made, he anticipated. Every instinct she had, he knew. "Enough games," she shouted, charging forward. Her boots slammed against the concrete as she tackled him into cover. They grappled, muscles straining, eyes locked. She could feel his strength, his precision, but she had her own. Years of training, survival, and fury surged through her. "You've hurt too many," she spat, striking with every ounce of power. "This ends now." Vey twisted, countering, but Alina's persistence paid off. She landed a strike to his midsection, momentarily staggering him. He smiled faintly, almost approving. "Good, strong, but not enough." Alina's mind raced. Every move, every tactic he had used against her, she knew. Every ambush, every trap, every betrayal, she anticipated the next. And then she acted. She feigned left, then pivoted, striking him to the ground. He rolled, agile and deadly, but she followed, relentless, a force fueled by 12 years of survival and scars that reminded her of what she had endured. "You underestimated me," she hissed. "I'm not the girl you left broken." Vei's eyes flickered with surprise, a brief human crack in the otherwise impenetrable predator. But it was enough. Alina kicked his weapon away, pinning him against the wall. Her rifle was aimed at his chest, hands steady despite the chaos around her. "You're done," she said, voice cold, unwavering. "No more lives, no more games." For a moment he didn't move. Then he smirked almost admiringly. "You have grown. I underestimated your resolve." Alina's team cautiously circled, covering her, their eyes wide with relief and disbelief. But the tension hadn't broken. She knew better. "I have no mercy for you," she said, "and you won't leave this place alive to harm another." Vei's smirk faded. He studied her as if trying to memorize her defiance. "Then finish it," he said calmly. Alina hesitated just for a heartbeat. 12 years of anger, betrayal, and survival pressed down on her. Could she finally end this? Could she deliver justice without losing herself in vengeance? She steadied her breath, counting each heartbeat. This was more than confrontation. It was closure, survival, and justice entwined. Suddenly, a secondary alarm blared. Another operative, one she hadn't seen, was attempting to breach the room, a final trap left by Vei. Alina's focus snapped back. She fired, neutralizing the threat, then returned to Vei. He was still pinned, breathing hard, a faint smile curling his lips. "You've won this round," he said softly. "But understand this, the game doesn't end. There are always shadows waiting, always consequences you cannot foresee." Alina's finger tightened on the trigger. "Then let me be the one to write the next move." Vei's eyes met hers one last time. There was no fear, no desperation, only the calm of a man who had known defeat yet accepted it. And then she struck decisively, subduing him completely, handcuffing him to a reinforced pillar. Silence fell. Smoke curled in the air. Her team, battered and exhausted, gathered around, eyes wide with relief and disbelief. The compound, once a theater of chaos, was finally quiet. Dalton's voice came over the comms, taut with emotion. "Ward status." Alina exhaled, leaning heavily against the wall. "We have him. Vei is contained for now." "Good work," Dalton said, pride and relief mingling in his tone. "Get your team out. Extraction is en route." Alina allowed herself a small, fleeting sense of victory. 12 years of scars, visible and invisible, had led to this moment. She had survived, endured, and finally confronted the ghost of her past. But even as she moved to guide her team toward extraction, she couldn't shake the truth in Vei's final words. The shadows he left behind, the consequences of his actions, they would linger. Her scars ached, her heart pounded, but a quiet, resolute determination settled in. She had faced death, betrayal, and the ghost who had shaped her life. She had survived. And she was ready for whatever came next. The night swallowed the compound once more, leaving only the faint echo of footsteps, the hum of alarms, and the knowledge that one battle had ended. But the war against shadows, deceit, and vengeance was far from over. The first hints of dawn crept over the horizon, pale streaks of light cutting through the darkness that had enveloped the compound all night. Smoke still rose from charred walls, curling like ghosts of the chaos that had consumed the courtyard hours before. Alina stood at the edge of the inner sanctum, watching her team secure the area. The air smelled of gunpowder, blood, and something colder, loss. Her ribs throbbed with every breath, a reminder of the scars that had carried her through 12 years of pain, betrayal, and survival. She touched them unconsciously, a silent acknowledgement of the past she had endured and the resilience that had brought her to this moment. Dalton's voice crackled over the comms. "Ward, status report. Is the area secure?" Alina exhaled slowly, her gaze fixed on the bound figure of Marcus Vey in the center of the compound. His calm, predatory demeanor had diminished only slightly after the night's confrontation, but there was no trace of fear, only calculation. "We have him contained," she said, voice steady despite exhaustion. "The team is accounted for, though we lost some tonight, and the compound is heavily damaged. Extraction is imminent." Dalton's reply was taught with relief. "Understood. Good work, Ward. Bring your team home." Alina nodded, eyes lingering on Vey. 12 years of scars, vengeance, and survival had culminated in this moment, yet she felt no triumph, only a quiet weight of responsibility. She had defeated him tonight, but the darkness he represented, the manipulation, the chaos, the ghosts of the past, was not so easily extinguished. The team moved through the compound, securing any remaining threats. Bodies of operatives loyal to Vey were bound, while the wounded were stabilized for evacuation. Alina checked each of her team members, nodding at those who had survived. Every nod, every breath, every heartbeat was a reminder that survival had come at a cost. As they reached the extraction point, helicopters descending with rotors slicing the cool morning air, Alina cast a final glance back at the inner sanctum. Vey remained seated against a wall, cuffs binding his hands, yet his eyes met hers with the same calm, unbroken intensity that had haunted her for 12 years. "You survived," he said softly, almost admiringly. "I expected nothing less." Alina's jaw tightened. "You've taken enough from me, Vey. It ends here." "Perhaps," he murmured, "but understand what we've done, what you've endured, it shapes you. Always. Every choice, every scar, every life touched echoes." Alina swallowed, the weight of his words pressing down. He was right. Every scar along her ribs, every betrayal, every painful lesson had forged the woman she was now. But she refused to let the echoes dictate her life. The helicopter hovered closer. She turned to her team. "Get in now." As they lifted off, Alina allowed herself a rare moment to breathe. The compound shrank below them, a theater of destruction, survival, and unfinished business. She watched the first rays of sunlight stretch across the mountains, bathing the chaos in gold, hinting at the promise of a new day. Dalton's voice came through the comms again, quieter now. "Ward, you did what few could. Bring your team home. We'll deal with Vey from here." Alina exhaled, leaning against the interior wall of the helicopter. Her eyes closed briefly, exhaustion and relief washing over her. But the scars along her ribs itched, reminding her that the past never fully left, that survival was not a single moment but an ongoing journey. "Do you think it's really over?" whispered one of her surviving team members. Alina opened her eyes, scanning the horizon where sunlight met shadow. "Tonight, yes, but shadows always linger, and someone like Vey, he never truly disappears." Her gaze shifted to the bound figure still visible through the reinforced glass. Even in captivity, Vey radiated a calm, almost eerie authority. He was a man who had shaped her past and perhaps the future, but she had survived him. She had endured, and for the first time in 12 years she felt a spark of unshakable certainty. She would no longer be defined by his games. The helicopter climbed higher, leaving the smoking ruins below. Alina's team sat in tense silence, catching their breath, tending to wounds, and silently mourning the lives lost. She touched her ribs again, drawing strength from her scars, each one a story of survival, endurance, and unbroken resolve. Her mind wandered briefly to Vey's words, the warning in his calm demeanor. He had orchestrated this chaos with precision, turning every mission, every ally, every choice into part of his design. Yet tonight she had outmaneuvered him, not with luck but with skill, intuition, and the lessons carved into her very flesh. Alina closed her eyes, feeling the wind whip past the helicopter, carrying with it the smell of smoke, blood, and hope. She allowed herself a small smile, tempered by the knowledge that the fight against shadows never truly ended. But for now, the ghosts of the past had been confronted. The man who had haunted her life was contained, and the sunrise promised that she and those who survived with her would continue forward, scarred, yes, but unbroken. As the helicopter soared into the morning sky, Elena whispered to herself, a vow both private and unyielding. I survived the past, I control the future, and no one will take that from me. The mountains stretched endlessly below, golden light bathing every ridge and valley, a symbol of endurance, survival, and the unrelenting spirit that had carried her through 12 years of darkness. And somewhere, bound but unbroken, Marcus Vey watched silently, calculating, waiting, a shadow tethered to the past, but one Elena knew she would never let define her again. The sunrise marked an end, and yet the story of survival, vengeance, and resilience would ripple far beyond this day, echoing in every scar, every heartbeat, and every choice that lay ahead.